Hello again. This is Captain Jade from the vessel CREO Harmony. Thank you so much for all who have participated in comments and also sending us messages. We thank you all for being a part of this community and for endeavoring to understand what's going on with your life, with your finances. And one of the biggest problems that I find in this society is student loans. Students are having a really hard time when they endeavor into the job market to find a decent job to even pay for their student loans. So I'm just going to go by my own personal experience with student loans, and that it's going to assist those who are trying to remedy the situation. So on my um, second degree, which was in biotechnology, I had received a Stafford loan and a private loan, and both of them were with Discover, and both of them were guaranteed by the government. And it was interesting to see that on the application, the student loan was uh, the original application showed the student loan was had a security in it, which was ironic because um, it was not securitized yet. So how could it have a student loan um, security already attached to it prior to it even going into effect? So what that means is simply that when you have a student loan, then the application is then dropped into the trust, which is securitized, which already has a security attached to it. That's the way that America, United States is providing student loans these days. And then they sell those trusts to other entities who then guarantee that along with the government. So what happened was that after the college or whatever was completed, I received the Discover servicer, who was Great Lakes at the time. They had contacted me and sent me coupons for the payment, $89 a month. 5 months went by and I kept asking them for FDCPA, you're a debt collector, so you must provide to me these type of information. Then they were not responsive. They actually had the Department of Education contact me, and so it was two entities contacting me, Department of Education and Great Lakes Servicer. And I asked, who is the creditor? And they said, this loan is guaranteed by the government. And that's all they said. And I said, well, what's the QSIP number? They didn't provide me with the QSIP number. And then I provided them with the QSIP number. I said, is this correct? The Department of Education was not entertaining any of the questions because they felt that any FDCPA questions were not going to fall underneath their jurisdiction, that Department of Education has their own codes which are very lenient towards the government loans for them, and the FDCPA doesn't apply. But what they forgot was that once it got securitized, that the servicer is a debt collector, and that they are an FDCPA under the FDCPA codes, the Fair Debt Collection Practices codes. So they weren't going to entertain that, and finally it got kicked back to Great Lakes, where finally I wrote a settlement offer, and it was very simple, um, how you get rid of a student loan. But before we get there, I went to see what folks were actually saying about student loans and how to do this on the at-law side. There's not that much remedy because this book here, Student Loan Laws, the bad news: millions of Americans delinquent on their student loans feel the full brunt of the federal collection. tax refund, interceptions, wage garnishment, seizure of Social Security benefits, shocking collection fees and collector harassment, limits on the bankruptcy discharge, and ineligibility for new loans and grants. So bankruptcy, even if you try to discharge your student loan in bankruptcy, there's actually a procedure that you need to follow, and that requires you to, um, ask for all these things which aren't even true. This book actually says something interesting. Claims for proprietary student abuse and deceptions, loans discharged based on school closures, fraud, failure to make owed refunds, or disability, minimizing collection fees, challenges to private student loan enforcement. So if you have a private student loan, then definitely you can challenge them. But what I did was I had done a novation contract, and the novation contract, well, if you want to write to the Department of Education, then there's a website called ed.gov. That's the U.S. Department of Education. Down at the bottom where you click the FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act, you can read up on how you can request for more detail on your student loan. And that's a good place to start if you don't know what the REMIC or the QSIP numbers are. Um, and so you can request some information that the government will provide, or the servicer or the creditor, whomever, can provide to you, or the holder in due course. So after that, I had so the remedy was very, very simple. It's just that I had written a novation contract in a way, and that novation contract stated that Great Lakes, if you were to cash this $89 check, which was the amount due on the coupon, then go ahead and cash it, but understand that you would also be agreeing to a full settlement in zeroing out the account and removing it off the credit report within 30 days. So they went ahead and cashed the check. And 30 days later, they sent another bill. And I said, oh, well, great, the administrative process isn't working. Is it? Well, no, it works just fine. It's just that we have to default them. And if we don't default them, then um, they keep sending a presentment, a new presentment. A new presentment puts you in a new contract. So all you have to do is send them a default notice. Well, thank you very much for cashing the check and agreeing to the terms. So here's your invoice for $10,000 for the new presentment. And after I sent them that, their default notice and their new $10,000 bill, then uh, they stopped contacting me. 3 months goes by, and then pretty much they transferred it to the Department of Education. So the Department of Education contacted me and said that they were the new purchaser of the loan. So they got it transferred to the Department of Education, and that they were going to be collecting it. And after that, they sent me new bills. And I said, thank you very much. I think you made a mistake here. The account is settled in full. So if the Department of Education would like to contract, then they would automatically agree to the $10,000 invoice per presentment. And that's where we left off. And for a few months, I never heard from the Department of Education. So I realized that something had happened, and I pulled the credit report, and I found that the loan was transferred, and it was zeroed out by Discover. And then the Department of Education, after saying that, they had dinged the credit report for 1, 2, 3, 5 months, but that wasn't true at all, because they didn't have the account for 5 months. It was more like for 3 months, they put the balance as zero. So that was for the Stafford loan and for the private loan, which was merged into one loan for the Discover and then after that was transferred to the Department of Education, and they had claimed a claim because all of the loans are backed by the government. They requested a claim from the government for this defaulted loan, and they got paid in full. And that's how they handled it. Never wrote anything to the effect that it was a zero balance, um, and I wasn't expecting them to. So this is easy enough to remove off the credit report because there was no contract with the U.S. Department of Education. So I hope that helps, folks. It's all just, a contract. And if we understand it as a contract, then we need to come back in with the novation contract, which is a novation contract is nothing other than a contract that gives consideration and rewrites the terms underneath your new terms. You have new terms coming in, and so those new terms are going to stipulate the new contract terms, and that's it. That's all. It's not too complicated when you think about it as a novation contract, and every state has a novation contract. Every state has a code for that. And if you're looking in educational codes, then you're not going to get very far. So, nobody has presented any remedy as far as student loans are concerned. And I've shown you proof today how you're able to completely eradicate student loans with due diligence, with working hard on your paperwork and not giving up and not thinking because they sent you a new presentment that nothing worked. Yes, it did. It's all a contract. So think about it and don't worry too much. And if you worry a lot, then, again, think about contract law and then write us or comment to us. And we so much appreciate our brothers and sisters. Don't fall for the trap of consolidating your student loans. Um, there's no need to do all of that. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.